Okay, so today's topic will be about the MBTI personality type and how that can affect your money, right? So, for those of you who have never heard of it before, this might be a little bit more complex for you, but for the majority of you, I'm assuming you've kind of at least heard of it before. It might be more colloquially known as the 16 personalities test. If you go ahead and search that on Google, you could probably find it. But I do believe that this is a very, very accurate indicator of your, psychological or the way you make decisions, basically. And I do believe that it's very, very important, especially if you are a business owner. So let's get into it. Okay, so with a little bit of background, so basically MBTI is a quiz that helps people figure out how they perceive the world and how they make decisions, and also how that differs from how others go about doing the same thing, right? And this last part is very, very significant to me, just because I realized, like, hey, if I know my own strengths and weaknesses, if I know my, how I operate psychologically, but I don't know how others operate, if I can't read people, if I can't, give them a cursory evaluation and like try to figure out what their personality types are, then that would never really help me, right? Because for example, I'd know, I'm lacking in people skills. I'd know I'm lacking in like connecting with others emotionally. But if I don't know who is capable of doing that on the flip side, then that would never help me. I just know that I suck, right? And that I need to work on it, which is something that I want to touch on later in this video. But for now, just keep that in mind, okay? So this last part's very, very important as well. So yeah, don't just treat it as some sort of like, self-evaluation and like, get interested in your results and then kind of leave it. Also treat it as a way you can kind of read people and make sure that you are choosing the people to work with that really, really mesh with your personality, right? And those that bolster the weaker aspects of your personality. Okay, so the MBTI, if you go on their website, they'll show you, kind of this screen if you go into like the types of personalities. So basically, there's four main categories. I myself fit into this one of the first four, which is INTJ, and then this part would be INTJA, which means assertive, or I think it's assertive, because the other one would be turbulent. But yeah, INTJ is my type. And then obviously there's two other ones here, the Sentinels and the Explorers. So once I get you guys to actually take the quiz, by the way, like just, feel free to leave a comment down below and basically like just kind of talk about what your thoughts are on that, if that was something that you expected or not, and just like overall how accurate you think it is. And again, look, if you don't know your personality type and you're in business, like I said, you're pretty much setting yourself up for a lot of pain, right? Because then you don't know not only what your strengths and weaknesses are, but then you don't know how to actually like delegate your weaknesses to someone who's better than you in that moment, right? And if you can't nail down your own strengths and weaknesses, well, then you can't expect to be able to lead a team for one, or put incredible systems in place so that you don't end up becoming a slave to your business, right? So again, this is actually not just applicable to business. It is highly applicable to business, but it extends out to your entire life in general, right? This isn't just some quiz that companies use, although a big portion of the most successful companies in the world use this. But it also extends out to your personal life as well, right? So I think a lot of people are just, not. This is not necessarily. I mean, it is something that should be fixed, but a lot of people are just very, very not self-aware, right? They're very ignorant in the reality in terms of like who they are, what their strengths and weaknesses are. And I think everyone can benefit from this, but especially if you're a business owner, because as a business owner, you focus a lot on team building, you focus a lot on delegation and system building, and you have to have these systems in place if you don't want to end up becoming a slave, right? So look, here's a statistic. 80%, like I said, of Fortune 100 companies, which are obviously some of the most successful companies in the world, they utilize personality tests to build stronger, more efficient teams and healthier organizations. And then you have the little Nietzsche doll on the bottom right corner. And look, this isn't just some warm and fuzzy concept. In order for you to get along better with people, although it can be, but it isn't just that. Look, here's the reality of it. A lot of people will look like this, right? So most of the stuff that people like to micromanage and they like to take on themselves either aren't conducive to the growth of their businesses in the grand scheme of things, or even in that moment, right? Or it could be easily automated or delegated to someone else, especially if they themselves suck at that thing or have no experience at that thing. So, for example, if you are a very analytical type, you're not going to spend 12 months learning sales in order to just start up your company, right? You're going to bring in someone that's highly energetic, and who can take on that role of salesperson, right? You're not going to spend 12 months learning it on your own. Now, later on, you can, right? But in business, like I said, it's all about efficiency, it's all about speed. So you have to know how to choose these team members when you're building out your systems and your teams, right? So look, think about it this way. If you had to, like I said, if you had to achieve expert level at every single thing within your business, every single little task, and even the ones you suck at, before you could execute it, you wouldn't really get anywhere, would you? Because then you'd have to be good at customer service, then you'd have to be good at sales, then you'd have to be good at like the more analytical side of things, and there's just so, and you have to obviously be the main idea person in your company, right? There's too many hats to wear, there's too many roles. Obviously you can get better at all these different components of your business in time, but at least in the present moment you need to understand who's going to be a best fit to take on those roles, right? Because in reality you can't expect to learn everything yourself. You would never get anything done, right? So look, if you are an INTJ like me, for example, and especially if you are like an INTJA and you're running a rapidly growing business, you are, a lot of people, what they will do, especially since they're INTJs, they will basically, what they'll do is like they'll try to take on everything themselves, right? And INTJs have a very, very lone wolf personality, so in the beginning they'll try to take on everything themselves. They'll quickly realize, for example, they're not really good at connecting with their team members on an emotional level, or they're not really as good at hearing out some of the pain points or connecting emotionally to their clients or customers, right? So we operate as INTJs, a lot of us, we operate on a relentlessly logical level, so we can't necessarily make that connection, right? So in that case, it's a lot more logical to first hire these ENFJs, ENFPs, ENTPs, or even ESTPs, right? So look, we can't make that connection. We can't go, okay, look, I need to energize my team. Like I need to all of a sudden like get up and motivate people and inspire people and tell them how much they're worth and like tell them like 3 good things they did that week. Like we just feel like that's inefficient because we personally don't really need that ourselves, right? So in that case, again, it's something we can get better at over time, but for now, when we're learning that skill, we're learning to get better at that aspect of our lives. We have to bring in someone like an ENFJ or an ENFP or ENTP or ESTP or something along those lines that can basically be the energizer bunny while also connecting with people on an emotional level, right? To keep team morale up. Or another example, if you are an ENTJ and you often get your way by kind of just like operating like a bull in a china shop, it might be wise to have a business partner or team member that they think more long term, like an INTJ, is a bit slower to the action, and they consider more possibilities, right? So even an INTP could be good for this, and that way they act as a check to your extroverted drive. So you can be going out there hustling and reaching out to clients and just being in the moment, and basically you can be the driving force for your business. But then it's often wise to have, for example, like an INTP or an INTJ to actually think about the long-term strategy of things, right? Who can act as a check if you make a rash decision. And this goes back to the point where I said about INTJs, we don't really equate, or we can't really make the connection between like moving our business forward and like having the need to like wear your heart on your sleeve and like connect on an emotional level. So yeah, this is thus why we have the Nick Young meme here. But anyway, so look, another example again could be even like it could be even like an ENFJ, right? Something like that could also help us as well, because obviously ENFJs are like basically crusaders. They're the nickname for them is the protagonist. They really, really stand up for a specific cause. So if we throw them into the mix and we bring them onto our team, And it could be just one specific person in our team. So maybe let's say my web developer or my copywriter, right? They're a very ENFJ type. Even that just one ENFJ can basically energize the entire team. They can act as a leader in my place while I'm busy kind of formulating and looking at the long-term strategy, right? And look, this is a little screenshot from the website. Even the website says, look, they're firm believers in people. INTJs, on the other hand, we can be very cynical, right? So if people aren't performing up to our standards, we won't yell like ENTJs will, but we will quietly jot that down, we'll note that down, and we won't really talk to them, right? We don't really believe in the whole like pep talk thing and stuff like that, but again, ENFJs do, right? And by the way, by no means am I saying that you should just neglect your weaknesses. So I'm not saying that if you can't do something, immediately delegate it and then forget about it in the long run, especially when it comes to your personal life, right? So obviously a weakness for me, like I said, is I have a difficulty connecting emotionally with a lot of people. If people come to me and, even if I have a problem or if they have a problem, I'm expecting very practical ways to move forward. Meanwhile, I know a lot of people will try to like sort things out emotionally and make sure they're like calm and stuff like that. I don't really have any issue with that, right? So I don't really expect others to have that issue as well. But obviously something I need to get better at is connecting, right? Just understanding where they're at and why they're feeling their pain and why they might need some sort of like pep talk or like emotional support, right? So I'm not saying you should neglect that. I'm just saying that if something in your business calls for that, you shouldn't spend like a year working on it and then just kind of put it off or trying to handle it yourself, right? The best way is to just bring someone on with that specific skill or with that specific characteristic, and meanwhile you can work on it in the background, right? Because in business, like I said, a delegation of first approach almost always trumps doing it all yourself. Speed and efficiency matter, and it's a lot easier to slowly bring up the areas you lack, especially when you know that, if you slip up, for example, if you like this one time with a client, you don't really know how to deal with them emotionally and that's what they needed, instead of you having to take the L and doing it all yourself, your mistakes won't affect your business's growth, right? Because you're working on it silently in the background while the big shot plays and stuff like that, so to speak, are being handled by your team or anyone else who you brought in. And look, understanding different personalities, it doesn't just apply to team building, but it also applies when you're dealing with clients, like I said, or customers, right? So if you are in the B2B space, this is especially important for you. All right, guys, it is time to take the test. So I'll leave the link in the description. Let me know what you get. And then if you want, I can actually make further videos about this. I know this was kind of a little bit brief. I did want to get a lot more in depth into it, but I also wanted to make it a lot more easily digestible. So let me know what you guys get, and we can kind of figure out like what percentage of which characteristic we have in the in the comments, especially since you guys are entrepreneurs and business owners. The majority of you are, so that would be interesting to see. But let me know, guys, and yeah, go take the test.